May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face to shine upon us, that your way may be known on earth, your saving power among all nations. Boom. Psalm 67, 1 and 2. This is the purpose of God. And I want to unpack it, so I think we're going to be able to put this on the screen. Let's see if we can. Is that coming up there? There we go. Okay. All right. 4 truths, 3 problems, 2 conclusions, 1 invitations. 1 invitation, that's 10 points. And some of you have slept 2 hours. So I realize that's a lot. But I was praying. So I was listening last night, praying this morning. How could I encourage you from God's word as this few days comes to a close? And springing from Psalm 67, 1 and 2, and taking us all over the Bible are 4 truths that lead to 3 problems, that lead to 2 conclusions, and 1 invitation. And just so you know where this is all going, the invitation is a few minutes from now, and we're gonna go through this pretty fast pace. But at the end of our time together, hearing from God's word, I'm going to invite you all across this room individually to stand if you would be willing to say, God, I will do whatever you call me to do, no matter what it costs, to spread your gospel and your glory to all the nations. So this is you saying, God, this is not about standing before others. This is you before God, saying, I will do whatever you call me to do, not knowing what that means. That could mean so many different things. It could mean you spending the rest of your life in La Mirada, California. It could mean you losing your life in Somalia. That's whatever you call me to do. No matter what it costs, knowing you will not be able to live out this prayer and it be easy. So there's cost associated with this. And we've heard this week from a sister whose husband died. So there's cost coming for anybody who stands, no matter what it costs, to spread your gospel and your glory among all the nations. Because this is the purpose of God. So that's where this invitation's headed. So let's go there. 4 truths. Number 1, the ultimate goal of God is his glory enjoyed and exalted among all the nations. That's the goal of God, the purpose of God. He's made it clear in his word. So we won't have time to turn to all these places, but Revelation chapter 7, verse 9 and 10 makes clear that the train of history is headed toward a day when every nation, tribe, language, and people will gather around the throne of God singing his praises. And who's designed history to end that way? God has. It's his goal. God has designed history to culminate in his own exaltation. God is doing all that he does to exalt himself. And to some that may sound self-centered. Wait, are you saying God is self-centered? And I want to be clear. I am not saying God is self-centered. God is saying God is self-centered. Of course he is. He's God. Who else would you rather him center around? You? Me, this or that? At any point God were to center around something else, he'd no longer be the God who's worthy of all exaltation. Of course God exalts himself. He's God. The beauty is, how does God exalt himself? The gospel. God exalts himself by sending his son as a substitute sacrifice for sinners like you and me, so that he would be exalted and we would be able to enjoy him in the process. ultimate goal of God, his glory, enjoyed and exalted. The nations are gathered around the throne singing his praises for his salvation. And he's wiping every tear from their eyes. That's where the train of history is headed, the ultimate goal of God. His glory enjoyed and exalted among all nations. I just think about the Psalms, what we just memorized together. God's blessing us, not in a way that centers on us, but in a way that ultimately centers on him. May he be gracious to us, bless us, cause his face to shine upon us, so that his ways may be known on earth, his saving power known among all the nations. It all ends in him. Even the book of Psalms. Just think about it. My wife and I, when we celebrate our anniversary, let me tell you what I've never given her as an anniversary gift. I've never said, babe, I wrote you 150 poems about how great I am in all my different attributes. And I just want to give them to you as a gift from me for you to read and say to me, even put to music and sing to me. And it will bring such joy to your soul. This is so different. No, of course, there's a million reasons I'm not giving my wife that gift. But this is the gift God has given us in the book of Psalms. Why? Because our deepest joy is found in seeing him in all of his glory and giving him all the glory he deserves. So that leads to truth number 2. If that's the ultimate goal of God, then the ultimate goal of every Christian is to enjoy and exalt God in all of his glory among all the nations. If the goal of God is this, and you're a child of God, then this is your goal. This is what you live for. This is what you wake up for in the morning. To enjoy God in all of his glory. That's the whole Psalm 27, land of the living, at the core of this conference. Remember earlier in that chapter? One thing I ask of the Lord, this I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon him and all of his glory and all of his beauty, to inquire of him in his temple. I just want to be with God. You are created to enjoy God. That's what you're made for. Live today and tomorrow and the next day, to enjoy God. May he be gracious to you and bless you and cause his face to shine upon you. Francis led us a couple nights ago, enjoy his throne that's full of grace, day in and day out. And exalt his glory among all the nations, because this grace is not intended to stop with you. It is intended to spread through you. May God be gracious to you, bless you, make his face to shine upon you, so that his way may be known on earth through you, his saving power known among the nations through you. This is where all of history is headed. So if the train of history is headed toward God being exalted among all the nations, and you want your life to count in this world, then you jump on that train. And you live for that train. For that day to come. This was such a pivotal point in my life when, as a college student, someone opened the Bible and just walked from Genesis to Revelation and showed me God's zeal for his own glory among all the nations, showed me the core truth of Psalm 67, 1 and 2. And at that point, I was just like, well, I need to become a missionary. I need to go to another nation to tell them about the gospel, especially in light of how many are unreached by the gospel. And so that was the trajectory my life was headed on. I was in seminary after that, and a leader of a missions organization had come to our campus, and I got invited to take him to breakfast before he spoke. And I told Heather, my wife, I was like, babe, I'm going to tell him we're ready to go overseas. Is that okay with you? And she's like, it's okay with me. So we pray. I go to breakfast with anticipation. I sit down. I share with him. I see this in the Word. I see the need in the world. My wife and I are ready to go. How do we go? And he looked back at me, and for about 60 seconds encouraged me in what I had just said. And then he spent the rest of breakfast talking to me about the need for pastors to shepherd churches where the gospel has gone for the spread of the gospel where it hasn't gone. And I was so confused. Like, I walked away from breakfast. It's my mind spinning. I go back to my wife. She's like, how'd it go? I'm like, I don't know. I think the leader of this missions organization just talked me out of becoming a missionary. And she was like so disappointed, like in me, like I'd blown the interview, like, and bungled our plans for life. And it was like, what'd you do wrong? I said, I didn't think I did anything wrong. And I'm so thankful for that conversation on that day, because it put a category of person in my mind that I don't think was there before. So apparently there's a kind of person who is passionate about the spread of the gospel and the glory of God among all the nations, but who doesn't become a missionary to another nation. There's that type of person. And the more I thought about it, I thought, well, of course there's that type of person. It's called a Christian. Right? What? Only those who are passionate about the spread of the glory of God among the nations become missionaries? What about the rest? Do we not want the glory of God among the nations? Because the Spirit of Jesus wants the glory of God among all the nations. Do you have the Spirit of Jesus in you? Then you are passionate about the spread of the gospel among the nations. God help us. We have taken His purpose in the world and in history and turned it into a compartmentalized program in the church for a select few people who really care about that. This is Christianity. God, deliver us from a Christianity that ignores your purpose. And help us all to realize this is the goal of my life. I want to enjoy God in all of His glory and exalt God in all of His glory among all the nations. That's what I'm made for. Psalm 67, 1 and 2. Which then leads to truth number 3. So God's plan for the accomplishment of this goal is the Great Commission. So we know this, Matthew 28, 18 to 20. This is how the glory of God will spread among the nations, through disciples who are making disciples, and gathering together in churches among all the nations. And we see this playing out in the story of the Bible. Let me put a map up here on the screen just to kind of illustrate this. So here's Antioch over here. Is that working? There we go. All right. So there's Antioch. Remember Acts chapter 13? So the gospel is spreading. Disciples being made in Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria. Then the gospel starts to spread in Acts chapter 11 to Antioch, to the Greeks also. Church is founded in Antioch. And then what happens? In Acts 13, they're worshiping and fasting and praying, and the Spirit says, set apart for me Saul and Barnabas for the work to which I've called them. And Saul and Barnabas go out from this place where the gospel hasn't gone to places where the gospel has not gone. They start down here in Cyprus, and they make disciples. They gather them together in a church. Then they go up to Persia and up to Iconium, or Pisidian Antioch, then Iconium, Lystra, and Derbe. And all these places, they're making disciples and planting churches. And what's happening? The glory of God is spreading to more and more people and more places as the church is faithfully making disciples of the nations, including sending out missionaries. So that's where I would just pause and echo what we heard earlier in that video. Yes, every Christian is a missionary in the sense that we're all called to live on mission, making disciples of the nations. At the same time, there are some people whom God calls to go and take the gospel where it hasn't gone. And it seems right to also call those people missionaries. So we'll come back to that in a minute. But this is God's plan for the accomplishment of this goal. Every one of us making disciples who make disciples who make disciples until all the nations are reached, which leads to truth number 4. The Great Commission is not a general command to just make disciples among as many people as possible. The Great Commission is a specific command to make disciples among all the nations. That truth is so important. Jesus didn't just say, make a lot of disciples. He said, make disciples, pantata ethne, of all the ethnic groups, of all the nations. This is where we need to pause and make sure we realize when we say nations, we're not talking about geopolitical entities like we might think of countries or nations today, 200 or so United Nations. That's not the way the Bible's talking about nations. When the Bible talks about nations, tribes, peoples, languages, it's talking about much more than just geopolitical entities. And we know that. There are many different nations, ethnic groups represented in this room, represented in Southern California, represented in Metro Washington, D.C., where I live, pastor, and all across the world. So there are far more than 200 nations in a biblical sense. There are thousands. Some say over 11,000 distinct people groups. Some say over 16,000 distinct people groups. And Jesus tells us in the Great Commission, I want disciples made in every single people group. Which means the Great Commission doesn't leave us with the option of just making disciples among certain people groups. We've got a command to make sure disciples are made among all the people groups of the world. Let me give you an illustration of this. It's not perfect, but hopefully it'll help just with mindset when we think about this. Imagine a tornado has come through an area, and a tornado is different than a hurricane. Hurricane hits a swath of land. A tornado is much more selective. It can hit this house and not this house, and this neighborhood, not that neighborhood. So imagine a tornado comes to an area, hits, ravages this community right here, keeps going, ravages another community here, and then keeps going many more miles and ravages another community. So we got 3 communities. You're head of rescue operations on the ground. You come to this first community and you realize there is more rescue needed in this community than your team can even begin to help. You're not going to be able to help everybody in this community. And then you know about these other 2 communities here, but you realize, well, if I scatter my team to go help out that community, well, we're going to lose time and energy while we're traveling when we could be rescuing people here. And then imagine this neighborhood way over here that's been ravaged. They not only need rescue, but you hear that if anybody tries to come and help that neighborhood, there are people in that neighborhood that will actually work against you, that will even try to kill you if you try to come and bring help there. So using just common sense logic, if you're head of rescue operations on the ground, you get to this community, what do? You stay here and you spend all your time here trying to help as many people as possible here. The only reason you would send somebody here or here is if your commanding officer said, I want people rescued from every single neighborhood. And if that was your order, then you would say to the team, all right, some are going to work here. Somebody's got to go here. And who's the team that's going to sign up to go here? Jesus has told us, you don't have the option of just making disciples where there's already people working for rescue. I want people rescued in every single tribe, language, people group in the world. That is a specific command from Jesus to make disciples among all the nations, which leads right into, I should back up just to make sure we see this New Testament-wise, how this is playing out. Once the red arrows are Paul and Barnabas coming back, the blue arrows are them coming back to Antioch. Once they got back to Antioch, what happened is, you'll see they're at Antioch, they start going north, and they're going to the same places they've been. They're encouraging the churches there. And then right around Acts 16, verses 6 through 10, Paul starts to go one direction, the Spirit stops him. He starts to go another direction, the Spirit stops him. And then he has a vision of a man from Macedonia saying, come over here and help us. Up in the northwest corner of this map, you see Macedonia. So they go up there, and what do? They go to new places where they're planting churches. Corinth, Thessalonica, Ephesus, making disciples. Come back down to Jerusalem and then head up to Antioch and encourage the church there. That's the second journey Paul takes. That leads to a third journey. He leaves Antioch, and he goes up. But you'll notice, on this trip, he doesn't go anywhere new. All these places, there's disciples and churches that have been planted. And he gets to Corinth on this trip, and he sits down and he writes a letter. Anybody know what letter he writes? He writes the letter to the church at Rome. So why Romans right here? Well, I'll show you one more map that'll give you a little background. So here's Antioch, where he's gone out from. There's Corinth, where he's traveling to. And he says, I am on my way to Jerusalem to take an offering for the saints there. But then I'm planning to come to you in Rome. And you look at Romans chapter 15. He tells us the whole reason why he wrote Romans right here. Because there is no more work for me to do in these regions. What kind of outlandish statement is that? He's in Corinth, for crying out loud. There's so much work to be done in Corinth. The place is messed up. So much immorality, idolatry. There's a ton of work there. And in all these other places. So why would he say that? Because there were people working for rescue there. There were disciples and churches in those places. He said, there's no more work here. I'm coming to Rome because I need you to help me get the gospel where? To Spain. Because they haven't heard it yet. And he said, Romans 15, I make it my ambition to see Christ preached where he's not been named. Why? Because this is the purpose of God, to bless his people for the spread of his gospel to all the peoples of the world. Because this is the command we've been given. We don't have the option of just making disciples where the gospel has gone. We've got to keep pressing on where the gospel has not gone. So biblically, this is the story of the New Testament. Now bring that into today. 3 problems. Number 1, today, and you know this has been said over and over again in this conference, I hope it's etched in your mind and your heart. There are over 3 billion people who are currently unreached by the gospel. And let's just make sure, so we're using the same dictionary with that term, unreached. Unreached doesn't just mean lost. People are just as lost in Somalia as they are in California. The difference is there's churches in California and millions of Christians in California. And in Somalia, there's very few churches and very few Christians, which means for most people in Somalia, they don't have access to the gospel. They don't have access to a church that's proclaiming the gospel, to Christians who know the gospel. They don't have access to it. That's the difference. It's why we don't say, I don't know why we talk about unreached people around the world. I mean, there's unreached people right around me and where I live or where I work. Like, those people are not unreached. You say, how do you know? Because you live next to them and you work around them. They have access to the gospel. You're it. We're talking about people. So practically what it means to be unreached is people are born and live and die, and the likelihood is they'll never even hear the good news of God's love in Jesus. No one will ever even tell them. They're unreached by the greatest news in the world. And that's a reality for over 3 billion people today. I trust you've seen this map, you're familiar with it, you know it. What we heard about in the video, talked about is the 1040 window. The green on this map represents places that are reached by the gospel. Obviously does not mean that means everybody's a follower of Jesus there, or that the church is like super strong in all the green. But it does mean there's disciples that have been made and churches that have been planted among the green. The yellow areas are less reached by the gospel, and it's usually going in one of 2 directions. It's either places in the world where there used to be strong gospel presence, like a lot of Europe, where it's waned, and so there's disciples and churches there, but less than before. Or maybe it's growing. Maybe the gospel's initially come there. But it's still growing. It's still a relatively weak church. So less reach with the gospel. And then the red in this area is where approximately 3.2 billion people in the world live who are unreached by the gospel. And if you ever think, well, man, where I live doesn't feel like it's green, then just imagine what it's like in the red. This is the reality in the world. And this is a problem. Over 3 billion people being born and living and dying without ever hearing about God's love in Jesus. Like, surely this is not tolerable for us. I don't understand why we in the church are not talking about this all the time, like with emphasis all over the place. Like, why would we not be talking about this and not just at a missions conference, like all the time? 3 billion people on a road that leads to an eternal hell, and nobody's even told them how to go to heaven. It's not that they've heard the gospel and rejected it. They've never even heard it. And we haven't. God's been gracious to us and blessed us and caused his face to shine upon us in so many ways so that his ways may be known on earth and his saving power known among the nations. We should be talking about this all the time. And not just talking about it, doing something about it. That leads to problem number 2. The church is practically ignoring the people and places most unreached by the gospel. So not only are we not talking about it, we're just turning a functional deaf ear and blind eye to this reality. And I could speak anecdotally about that, but I'll just speak quantitatively about that. You look at, what did Jesus say? Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So where's our treasure? The reality is we spend most of our money on ourselves, as Christians, followers of Jesus, in one of the wealthiest places to ever exist on planet Earth. We spend most of our money on ourselves, making life more comfortable for us. We give some of that money to churches, ministries, which in churches we spend most of that money on making church most comfortable for us. And then a small percentage of what we give to churches, we then give to what we call missions. Spread the gospel around the world. So that tiny percentage, you look at just that percentage. And do you know how much of that is going toward unreached people in the world? So we're already at a very small percentage of what we give, but even out of that, approximately 99% of the money we give as churches to missions around the world actually goes to green areas on this map. Missions in Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and parts of Europe, even parts of East Asia over here, Australia. And I'm not saying by any means that there's not work to be down in those places, and it's good to come alongside our brothers and sisters in those places. But at some point, we've got to open our eyes and realize that in the name of missions, we're still ignoring 3 billion people who have little to no access to the gospel. This is what we call the great imbalance. Like, this has got to change. The church is practically ignoring the people and places most unreached by this is the state of our church, what we're a part of today. Which leads to problem number 3. The number of unreached people is higher now than ever before in history. And it will continue to increase until Christians decide to follow Jesus fully. And every word there I'm trying to be really intentional with. Well, first, the reality, number of unreached people higher now than ever before in history. Do we realize this? There's more unreached people in our day today than there was a century ago. Because world population is increasing, including population among the red, and we're not keeping up with that at all, with getting the gospel to them. So the number of people who are being born and living and dying without ever hearing the gospel, going to an eternal hell without ever hearing about heaven, Jesus is higher today in your and my lifetime than ever before in history. And it's going to keep going up, not until we decide to have more missions conferences. Or these few missionaries start to figure it out. It's going to keep going up until Christians decide to follow Jesus. The only explanation for why there are 3 billion unreached people in the world today, and it's growing, and Jesus has told us to make disciples of all the nations, the only explanation for why that reality is there is because we're not following Jesus. We are following a nice, comfortable Christian spin on an American dream that's turning a deaf ear and a blind eye to billions of people who need the gospel. And we call it Christianity. And it's not. It's not biblical Christianity. Biblical Christianity involves followers of Jesus making disciples who make disciples of the nations. Every single follower of Jesus saying, how are we going to get the gospel together to those who've never heard it? This is what Jesus has commanded us to do. So that leads to 2 conclusions. Because at this point, you'd be like, well, that's just heavy and discouraging. This is where I want to bring it up in an Esther 4 kind of way and speak specifically to this generation. And I'm just going to include myself because I'm alive right now too. So for us together, follow this. 2 conclusions. 1, collectively, we have more opportunities to reach all the nations with the gospel than ever before in history. We do. Like than ever before. And I get kind of tentative, allergic when I hear people say, unlike ever before in history. This is true. Paul, who wrote Romans, as he's traveling, think about it. It took him months to travel from one place to the next, and the ship was not always reliable. And we can get anywhere in the world today in a day. Paul never could have dreamed about a machine that flies through the air and can take you to the other side of the world in a matter of hours. He would write letters and then send them that would take weeks to get to their recipient, and it'd take weeks for them to hear back. You and I have a device in our pocket that enables us to communicate with people around the world in real time in multiple languages. Like we talked yesterday about the dangers of this device, but what about the opportunities we have with this device? And other technology like it, travel, technology, the globalization of today's marketplace. They were dependent on roads to travel on, the business would spread. Just think about that today. You're getting a degree at this university that will open doors for you to be able to go anywhere in the world. Be able to share the gospel, make it known. Okay, think about. I was talking to somebody yesterday about the nursing school here. A strong nursing school. It's like, so anybody in the nursing school? Let me give you a picture of this. Let me give you a picture of a sister who graduated with a nursing degree, and instead of looking for a job among the green, she looked for nursing jobs among the red, and she found a job in the heart of the Middle East. And I could point you right now to hundreds of jobs like this if you're in the medical field that are available in the Middle East right now that you can go. So she starts working in this hospital, significant city, in this significant country in the Middle East, and she's risen up in the ranks of nursing. She's now head of nursing in this hospital. She has a Bible study in her office every week with Muslims. Nobody stops her. Do you know why? Because she's really good at nursing. So it's not like, okay, I want to quit college so I can take the gospel to nations. Maybe it's, I need to do really good at college so I can take the gospel to the nations. Maybe I need to dive in and see, I was reading, we don't have time to go there, but Exodus 35 this morning, it was beautiful. All the different people in the assembly of God's people who had different skills and different things that would come together for the construction that God was commanding them to do. And all kinds of people had gifts, skills, resources that came together in order to make possible, what God was commanding them to do, I was just praying over you. I obviously don't know all of you, but all the different degrees you're getting, skills you have that you're developing, what if we're working with all these skills and all the resources? Maybe it is working here, making a lot of money, but not buying into a lesser dream in the process, using the resources we have to fund the spread of the gospel among the nations. What would it look like if we're all doing this? Collectively, we have more opportunities to reach all the nations than ever before in history. For such a time as this, what a time to be alive. That's collectively. Bring it down to where you're sitting right now, individually. Second conclusion, each one of us has a historically unique and eternally significant part to play in seeing all the nations enjoy and exalt God. Historically unique, just kind of put it together, what I was just talking about. I don't know what you're majoring in. Maybe math. I can't comprehend why you would major in math. But that, for some of you, is like your deal. And it's beautifully, historically unique. You've got opportunities that will open. I was talking with somebody in engineering just yesterday. There are so many opportunities for engineers in really hard to reach places in the world. And you don't have to be like others. I can't get into a lot of countries in the world with my PhD from seminary. But you can with that engineering degree, that nursing degree. So just realize God's given you, right where you're sitting, unique gifts, unique grace, unique resources to have an eternally significant part in seeing the nations enjoy and exalt God. And you might start to think, I don't think I can have that big a part. Who is your God? Are you looking to yourself or the Spirit of the Holy God who's living in you? Do not sell God Almighty short for what He will do, wants to do in and through your life. And yes, don't get prideful at the same time. We're all just playing a part. But that's the beauty. We all get to play a part in the grand global purpose of God in the history of the world. Don't settle for anything less than that. Now just think about Paul. You look at this map, we looked at it earlier. There's Rome in the middle, Antioch, Jerusalem on the right. You'll see a little bit of yellow on this map. The yellow areas on this map represent regions that were known to contain Christians at the beginning of Acts 13, before Paul went out on those journeys. So those were areas where there were Christians. There were a few in Rome, some in Jerusalem, some in Antioch. Most of that map unreached. So in just a second, I want to show you the areas known to contain Christians at the end of those 3 journeys that Paul took, making disciples, multiplying churches. And I just want you to see if you can tell a difference. Here was after those 3 journeys. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? And obviously it wasn't just Paul. It was like the whole dude running around last night. Is Paul running? And this person taking it to this person and this. So it's pretty beautiful, all those regions where you can see where he traveled. But you'll notice what's not yellow on this map. Spain. Because Paul made it to Rome, but not the way he planned. He made it there in chains. And likely never made it to Spain. So does that mean Paul failed? That Paul clearly overestimated the part you were going to play? Well, before we come to that conclusion, let me show you one more map that'll show the regions known to contain Christians within 2 short centuries after Paul's death. And just see if you can tell a difference. Do not underestimate for a second what God will do in and through your life. And the beauty is beyond your life, beyond your death, for the spread of his grace and his glory among the nations.
Discover who you're called to be at Biola University, a leading Christ-centered university in Los Angeles, with programs on campus and online. Subscribe for more of our videos and learn more at biola.edu.